Welcome to this week's episode of Crunching Your Growth, where we're going to talk about retail and e-commerce bankruptcies. What went wrong? We'll be right back. Welcome to this week's episode of Crunching Your Growth. I'm your host, Phil Masiello, and today we're diving into a topic that's been sending shockwaves not only through the retail and e-commerce world, but to people, to everyday folks, because people are losing their jobs and people are worried about the economy. But over the past 2 years, we've witnessed an unprecedented number of bankruptcies from iconic brands like Party City, Big Lots, TGI Fridays, Route 21 Express, Joann Fabric, The Body Shop, Red Lobster, and so many more. It's a retail reckoning that's left many people asking, what's going wrong? Are these companies falling victim to broader economic pressures? Is it poor management? Is that to blame? Is it are these brands simply fail to adapt to what's going on in the marketplace? Have they kept up with consumers? Today we're just we're just not naming names. We're going to unpack the stories behind these collapses. We're going to identify the lessons for businesses trying to navigate the stormy seas of today's economy. But we're going to look at how overexpansion, debt mismanagement, lack of innovation, and inability to connect with modern consumers has spelled disaster for many of these brands. It's not just the economy. What you're going to find out is some of these problems have been well known and well documented. And if anybody in senior management had bothered to look, they would have seen it a long time ago and they would have been able to react and fix it. But we're going to see they didn't. And so it's not always the economy. Just because a business falters and a business goes into bankruptcy or a business liquidates, it's not necessarily the economy. And the reason why this is important for this show is because every single one of these began as a startup. Every one of them. Did they fail to adapt? In a lot of cases, yes. Did they fail to adapt to changing circumstances? In a lot of cases, yes. So whether you're an entrepreneur, a brand strategist, or just curious about the state of retail and e-commerce, stick around because we're going to try and make sense of all this chaos. And again, is this wave of bankruptcies a symptom of a struggling economy, bad management, outdated brand strategies? It could be a lot of things. But why it's important? Well, it impacts people. It impacts employees. It impacts communities. It impacts the broader retail and e-commerce landscape. So the importance of understanding these failures is going to help build a stronger, more resilient business, especially for startups. So we're going to start with the first one that has been it's been all over the news. It's been talked about numerous times, and it's constantly out there. So we're going to talk about Party City first. So Party City was founded in 1986. And it was a leader in the party supply retail industry, capitalized on a big selection of products and seasonal sales. However, the company struggled with declining sales, foot traffic, due to the rise of online competitors. That's an important point, due to the rise of online competitors. These guys started in 1986, and then changing consumer habits, right? Then they had supply chain disruptions, which everybody had. Everybody had supply chain disruptions during COVID. So I can't say that affected one company worse than the other. Inflation pressures heavy debt burden from private equity ownership, heavy debt burden from private equity ownership. And these challenges culminated in Chapter 11 bankruptcy early in 2023. But what they've announced recently is they're just going to go and shut down all the stores. So when you think about Party City, I don't know how many of you have shopped in a Party City. Maybe none. Maybe that's part of the problem. But they were heavily reliant on Halloween and seasonal, right? And so all of a sudden now, since 1986, you've had these pop-up stores for Halloween that show up every year and every holiday. But the real killer here is they started in 1986. Now, that was before Amazon. That was before the internet. So when they saw the internet happening, wouldn't you think they put up a store and start doing more e-commerce? But instead, they held to the stores. Well, we've seen declines in store traffic. We've seen declines in malls. We've seen overstored sections of the country for retail. So is it any wonder? But here's the real kicker. Okay. Now, put yourself in the position of management. Okay. I'm a manager, right? I am in charge of this Party City store, this Party City company. Okay. So I'm the CEO. Now, I've got problems and I see them coming. So wouldn't I start looking at, hey, where are these problems coming from? Right? What are some of our problems? Right? Can we pinpoint what's happening here? And can we look at maybe talk to the customers, right? Can we talk to find out what the customers are saying about us? That would be the first place that I would start looking, right? Is starting to talk to the customers. And when you start looking at what the customers are saying, well, lo and behold, I mean, it doesn't matter what system you're using or where you're looking. When you start looking at it, they got a 1.5 out of 5 stars. And this is Trustpilot. So these are verified customers who purchased from them, whether it's in the stores or whether it's on e-commerce. 1.5. So when you have a 1.5, okay, you have a 1.5 rating, that's telling you something. It says we're not doing something right and you have time to fix it. But instead they just ignore it, right? We call that the ostrich principle, right? People don't want to, in business, people don't want to face the problem. So what do? They hide their head in the sand. Okay, you can do that, but this is the culmination of that. So it's not the economy. They had a perfectly good business. People are buying party supplies. They're buying them on Amazon now. They buy them at Walmart. They're buying them on Walmart.com. They buy them from the pop-up stores. So you didn't stay up with your business. You didn't stay on trend. You didn't talk to the customer. You didn't really care about the customer because you didn't pay attention to what the reviews were saying. And then you went bankrupt. Well, so what's the big secret here? Is that economy? No, it's not the economy. This was a poorly run company. Maybe it started out well run, but it was poorly run and then just kept opening up stores, because thinking that that's going to solve the problem. Man, I don't think it did, obviously. So in my opinion, the problem with Party City was overexpansion and too much reliance on seasonal business, declining demand for party supplies because consumer shift has been a shift in consumer behavior. I mean, when was the last time that you went and bought party supplies at the Party City store? You probably went to Target, you probably went to Walmart, you probably went to on Amazon and bought them, right? Mismanagement of debt, because again, what I said before was these guys were saddled with huge amounts of debt from a private equity ownership, right? So anytime that you have private equity ownership, if you're not on a growth scale, if you're not on a huge growth path, then if you start to stagnate, these guys want out. It's their money. They put the money in to help you grow. So, and then they didn't diversify enough. They didn't diversify into e-commerce till it was too late. We talked about this with Bed Bath & Beyond, who actually never got into e-commerce. The only thing they used their e-commerce site for was not selling, was to give coupons to get into the store, which was another disaster. And where are they now? They're gone too. So that's really the problem with Party City. It had nothing to do with the economy, had nothing to do with, consumers. It had to do with, well, it does have to do with consumers. They rejected it. Consumers aren't going to buy where they don't want to, right? So, you have to be careful of what you're asking consumers to do. They want to put their money where they're going to get the biggest return. Right? They want to feel good about spending money in a company. The next big one, which we've heard a whole bunch about, they're closing pretty much every store. They've laid off the entire senior management staff, and with no severance. I believe this just happened a week or so ago, and they've told everybody that the stores are closing. So they're going to just shut down pretty much all the stores. That's the company that was established again in 1967. It became known for discount oriented retail approach, right? Big Lots. Over time, mounting competition from e-commerce giants like Amazon, dollar stores, as well as a lack of innovation in its product offerings. An over-reliance on the brick and mortar sales, and then underwhelming performance in furniture and seasonal categories, which drove significant losses. Now, I know that there's a segment of people. I've been in Big Lots before, and I'll tell you, when I've gone into Big Lots, what I've seen, I saw outdated merchandise. They have food in there sometimes, and it was outdated. And who's going to buy outdated food? I could never understand that. And they did it as a course of business, and people bought it. I was amazed. The furniture was cheap. It wasn't anything that you couldn't find somewhere else in better quality for probably the same money. So I don't think that they really paid attention. In the beginning, they probably did really, really well, and they thought, okay, we have this model, that's great. But consumers need more. They need to know that you're keeping up with them. And if you're not keeping up with them, well, what happens? Well, what happens is exactly what's happening, which is you've got no customers. But again, once again, we see that it's mounting competition from e-commerce giants like Amazon and dollar stores. E-commerce competition. Now, the company was around since 1967. And again, why is this important for startups? Why is it important for entrepreneurs? The world started to change. The 60s, the 70s, 80s, things started to change. By the time you got to the 90s, we had the dawn of e-commerce, which changed everything, right? So now you don't pay attention to that. You just think, okay, well, people are going to continue to come to my stores. This was the mistake Borders Books made, and which back in the early 2000s, and why they're not around anymore. They just thought nobody's going to buy books online. This Amazon thing is just a fleeting business. Nobody's going to buy it. There's a great Amazon book. There's a great book about Amazon from when it was first starting. And one of the, I can't remember the name of it, but you can look it up, Amazon Early Days, a book about Amazon's early days. And what was amazing about this was that Borders truly believed that nobody was going to stop coming to the brick and mortar stores. They truly believed that Amazon was a fleeting business. But what they did was they cut a deal with Amazon. They gave Amazon their e-commerce business because they didn't want to run it. They didn't know anything about it, and they didn't want it on the books. The CEO did not want it on the books. So he essentially gave it to Amazon. Not only that, they paid Amazon to take it. So they gave the business to Amazon. Now, what did they give Amazon? Not just a website. They gave Amazon their customers. So Amazon had all of their customers. What do you think Amazon did? They started sending them books. They started sending them emails about books. They looked at their history of what they were buying. The algorithm started sending them direct hits on what they would want. And where's Borders today? Gone. So again, we have a situation with Big Lots where they had no significant difference any longer. There was nothing you could buy in a Big Lots that you could not find anywhere else, right? And so again, I'm sure things started happening a few years ago, right? So if things started happening a few years ago, then what do you think the customer was saying about Big Lots? And again, I use Trustpilot because Trustpilot verifies reviews. So they know that this person purchased from them. They know that it's real. It's not like you go on Facebook and you can write a review and nobody cares. These are real reviews. It's like Amazon. You have to make a purchase in order to leave the review. Well, again, you've got a two. A two. This isn't something that just cropped up in the last year. These are problems that have been around for a long, long time. So again, if you're the CEO and you have problems, I'll tell you one thing that I was taught, and I used it in a couple of my businesses when I started them, and I still use it today in client relations, is that when something's going wrong, the first thing you do is start talking to the customer. Start talking to the customer because they're going to tell you exactly what you did wrong. When we were in the shaving business, we were doing really, really well. And we had a lot of customers who used to tell us all the time how much they liked us. But I still used to call the customers, especially the ones that didn't like us, the ones that complained, the ones that had a problem, because they're not going to hold back. They're going to tell you exactly what you did wrong, whether it's shipping, whether it's packaging, whether it's the quality of the product, doesn't matter. And so you learn from that and you make adjustments. The customer is telling you you have a problem. The person buying your product is telling you you have a problem. Are you just going to ignore that? Well, obviously they did, and pay attention to it, because if they did, they would have made changes. So, and we tell our clients this all the time. They get a bad review on Amazon for a product, they freak out about it. Well, read the review, see what the customer didn't like, and see if it's fixable. Because if it's an ongoing problem, you're just going to get more and more of those, and then you're not going to be able to sell much. Make sense? So again, we've got Big Lots. Can't compete with giants like Walmart, Target, online stores. Their stores were outdated, they made little investment in those stores. They didn't pay attention to omni-channel strategies. They didn't have a website that was supporting the stores. Evidently, when I read, they had poor inventory management, which led to huge losses, huge losses. When you have overstocked stores or you're not managing your inventory, you wind up with shrink. And again, the customers said they didn't like them, right? So these problems were persisting and nobody was going to do anything about it. And so that's the result, is they're gone. Now you feel bad because what you have is a lot of people out of work, and there's going to be a lot more people out of work. So more than likely, brands are going to pick up the slack, because when you walk into a Walmart or a Target or any retailer today, they're pretty much short staffed. So those people will find jobs, but still it's disruptive. It's disruptive. So the next one, which I really love, is TGI Fridays. They were founded in 1965, and it was once a great company, a great, it was a great brand. And it really started the casual dining industry. Started in New York, I believe outside the Empire State Building, if I'm pretty correct. Back in 1965, was a place where business people went and uh, you know had a drink after work on a Friday. Anyway, well, any night, but again, it started to face declining customer interest. It's not a problem of the economy. People are still eating out. There are still chains that are thriving, but when you're dealing with food, you've got to change. I mean, if you're just going to stick to the same thing over and over again, and so people got tired of going there. They lost interest, and they started to move their preferences towards fast casual dining. Uh, But you've got huge competition in that world. So if you're not moving forward, if you're not changing, then you're stagnant. And what happens when you're stagnant? Well, you just fall behind, and you're not going to be able to buy your way out of that. You're not going to be able to discount your way out of that. You're not going to be able to run deals 2 for 1. I forget which one of these chains it was a couple of years about a year ago. That was just the worst marketing effort I ever saw in my life. I believe it was Chili's, where they had this whole margarita push that they were pushing, and they were trying to create some sort of brand image around margaritas. Well, most of the time, it's a family oriented place. So you're not going to go in there and start pounding margaritas. The whole thing was just wrong. You want to sell food. You don't want to sell just alcohol. So I think some of these guys have lost their way and they don't want to admit it and they don't want to focus on the problem. But once again, where can we look? We can look at the customer and we can see what the customer said about them and see how the customer felt about it. And again, we find that the customer didn't care for them. The customer was saying, the food's terrible. It's the service is bad. If you're in the food business, and this isn't a few people, I just pulled up one review group, but I mean, you can look at your local ones. You can look. I spent hours looking at reviews, and I couldn't believe if I'm the CEO and somebody's coming to me saying, because it's very simple. I can just go on my computer while I'm sitting in my office and I can go TGI Friday reviews. And the answer becomes glaringly clear to you. And then you huddle your senior management. You say, look, we have to fix this. We have a problem with food. We have a problem with food quality. And that's what we do. We sell. We have a problem with cleanliness. We have a problem with service. We have a problem with evolving dining trends. We have all these problems. Why aren't we doing anything about it? We're just doing the same thing. The menu was the same. I'll tell you my experience. I went into a TGI Fridays about 2 or 3 years ago to meet somebody to have a drink and a couple of appetizers. And I thought the place was disgusting. And it was near a very, very strong mall. It was in a great area. It wasn't that old, but it was dirty. It was disgusting. And I wouldn't want to eat there. The bar was sticky. I mean, it was really, really bad. And so I thought, man, I don't think they're going to make it. And I wasn't particularly wrong. So, but you could see it. You could see it in the way that they were. As soon as people stop investing in their stores, as soon as they stop investing in cleanliness, as soon as they stop investing in the infrastructure, that's when you know it's going to be a couple of years and they're going to be done. So again, had nothing to do with the economy. People are still eating out. There are brands out there in the food world that are thriving, but not TGI Fridays. So when people say it's the economy, it's not the economy. They failed to keep up with dining trends. They failed to innovate the customer experience. They failed to maintain their business. They failed. So now they're in bankruptcy. Now, whether they come out of it or not, that's a different story. If they come out of it, how many times are they going to come out of it before they finally throw in the towel? Or unless they come back with some sort of an innovative new strategy. But honestly, you have to go back and you have to do some things with those older stores. And that's costly. That's costly. And whether they can come up with that kind of money, we'll see. So anyway, the next one is something that is a little bit out of my bailiwick, but I did consult my children, my daughters primarily, about these next two. The first one is Rue 21. I'm not going to lie to you. I've never stepped foot in one. I don't know anything about it, but I do know about fashion, and I do have 4 daughters, so they shop, and they can tell you that again, this was established in 1976. They were targeting teen shoppers. It was fast fashion offerings. They were out there in 1976 with fast fashion before before HSM, ASOS, all those, or H&M, and all those others that are in the fast fashion world. So you would think that usually a company like that would keep up with the trends and keep their customers. They're heavily reliant on mall traffic, which we all know is declining. I don't go to the mall. I can't tell you the last time I've been to a mall. Mostly I shop online, although there's specialty stores I go to, but I don't know about the mall. But teens definitely go to the mall still. So how could you not keep up with that? They didn't pay attention to fashion trends, and so they struggled to attract the Gen Z, the millennial customers, outdated fashion lines, and then an ineffective digital strategy. And I do not understand this. Again, they started in 76. They're focused on the teen audience. You would think that they would have a marketing person going, we need to be online. We need to be selling online. And now you've got competitors like ASOS out there, Shine, which is new, fairly new, coming from China with fast fashion. You've got H&M out there, and all these guys are just eating their lunch. I just, to me, I don't understand it. I don't understand how you can sit there and say, everything's okay. We have to do better job of merchandising. We have to do a better job of more sales, more ads. That's not the way that the world works. I mean, if your customers are leaving you, there's a problem. So again, what do we do when the customer is leaving us, right? We go and we start. And again, if it were me, and if I were the CEO, the first thing I would do, I'd go online and I'd go, okay, what are customer reviews for Rue 21? Well, terrible. They're awful. And it's not just here. Again, I've looked at a ton of them, just awful. So if you're the CEO and you want to know how people are viewing your business, it's time to look, right? And I know we read these stories about, somebody left a terrible Yelp review and then the CEO got on and they started this fight about it. That's not the way to handle it. You read the review and you find out whether it's right or wrong. Too many times, and I'm telling you this from experience, too many times in clients that we have, too many times I see businesses read a review and make an excuse about the bad review because they don't want to admit it. So they'll go to CEO. No, this was just a one time. Oh no, they're wrong. Oh, this was just a mad customer. This was a pissed off customer. No, man, no. A review tells you a lot about your business, So it's up to you to deal with that review. The other one that we see from a mall perspective is Express, which has been around for a long time, right? Express launched in 1980, and it was trying to cater to young professionals, stylish, affordable clothing, but again, heavily reliant on mall traffic, high rent costs, razor thin margins. It's just not managed well. But again, they didn't keep up with the fast fashion trend. People move, people change, people go in different directions. Again, brands like Zara, H&M, ASOS, these guys came up and just started eating their lunch. I'll tell you how we approach it. When we see a brand that's struggling, we see an opportunity. And when we look at, and we're focused primarily on e-commerce, but when we see an e-commerce brand that's struggling, we focus on it and we figure out how we can take some of that business. So it's the same thing in retail. There's so many retailers out there that are strong, that are doing well, that have great websites, that do great e-commerce business. I mean, Macy's is another one we didn't talk about in this, but Macy's is struggling to close stores, and they're struggling with their identity, really. I mean, what's in a Macy's that you can't find anywhere else, probably for less money? Because Macy's is a department store that sells other brands. So it's a store that sells other brands. So where can you find those other brands? Well, you can find them everywhere. You can find Ralph Lauren, you can find Nike, you can find all these things. So I ask myself this for every client before we take them on, because we don't take on every client. We say, what do they do better than their competition, or what do they do different? And if neither of those can be stated, if you can't be better or you can't be different, we can't take you, because you're not going to be able to survive. You have to have some point of differentiation. And if you don't, then you're not going to survive. Right? It's a very simple business. If you're the same as everybody else, or people can buy the same product anywhere else, then you don't really have a fit in the market. You're just going to focus on price. That's the only way you're going to get customers, right? And of course, what do people say about Express? Terrible. They say terrible things about Express. and not a few. I mean, there's 1,500 reviews here. There's 178 here. Again, outdated merchandise, terrible customer service, poorly managed stores. I mean, it all comes out. And again, if you're in charge of, if you're the CEO of Express, wouldn't you be looking? It's the first thing I would do. What are the customers saying about us? I would tell my marketing person, what are the customers saying about us? I want to know reality. I don't want you to put your spin on it. I don't want you to tell me that this was just out of one store in Lakeview, Illinois, or I don't want to hear that. I want to know what the customers are saying about us. And if you can't tell me, I'll find somebody who can. Um, this next one is another one that is just gonna, I think, close every store. They're in bankruptcy now, but they haven't said that they're going to close every store yet. But I'm pretty sure that they are closing every one of them. Is 99-cent only stores, dollar store, right? 99-cent only. We're not a dollar store. We're 1 cent cheaper. But again, founded in '82, and it built its business on low prices. But it struggled as labor costs, rent costs grew, competition from rivals, Dollar Tree, Dollar General, Amazon, online. And then again, mounting debt, financial instability. These guys just kept rolling out new stores, rolling out stores. That's going to solve the problem. The more stores we have, the more sales we'll do. Well, not really, because every single one of those stores now you're just mounting the problem. So rather than figuring out the problem, they just kept rolling out stores, rolling out stores. So what's in a 99-cent store? I mean, it was great. We used to go to these types of stores when the kids were young, and you find little, tchotchkes and things that the kids would buy. But on an everyday basis, it's pretty tough business. The dollar store business is a very tough business because you've locked yourself in, right? Everything is a dollar or a multiple of a dollar, right? Two for a dollar, or two for a dollar, two for $2. So this way you can stay, well, they're $1 a piece, but because you have to get your costs, I mean, you have to get your retail sale up. You have to get your average sale up, and it's pretty tough to do. So the dollar stores are struggling. It's got nothing to do with the economy. It's got nothing to do with the economy. I mean, think about it. If the economy was bad, people would flock to the dollar stores. They would flock to the 99-cent stores because they're cheaper, supposed to be cheaper. But they're not. They're closing because the economic model is not sustainable. You cannot continue to sell something for $1 like you did 40 years ago today, right? It's everything has changed. And again, there are opportunities online for things, but what I don't profess to know every single thing about the dollar store business, but I have been in, I have done business with them, and I can tell you that the model is sort of outdated. They struggle. They've been struggling. They try and buy things for 30 cents and sell them for $1. It's really difficult to do in this day and age, and then nobody wants to sell it to them because you've got options. I can sell it to Walmart for, $1 and they'll send it. But again, you're struggling. Where do you go? You talk to the customer. What does the customer say? Customer says, not good. We're not happy, right? It's terrible. Store was filthy, products, it's just not good. And I think all these dollar stores today are struggling with people. Even the dollar store employees are saying that the stores are dirty and disgusting. Inventory comes in, they've cut labor down to basically nothing. So people, not the economy. It's not the economy. Poorly run management, mismanagement. When you look at them, again, it's rising operational costs and failure to innovate, not enough private label, which I would agree with. I mean, why wouldn't you get private label product? Why wouldn't you get your own products instead of trying to buy from everybody else as to what you're doing? Here's the next one. And again, I'm sorry we're going through these, but I think it's important and I tried to do a nice variety of stores and different types of things. This one, Joann Fabric's, more specialty store. And this business has been around since 1943. They started in Cleveland, Ohio, catering to the crafting and sewing community. But again, they did really well during COVID because people jumped in and started doing things because they were bored or they couldn't get out, so they were making things again. But again, the product that they sell can be bought online, have it delivered to you faster than, and probably for less money than you're selling it for. And again, are you paying attention? Are you paying attention to what's happening in the world, or you're just stuck to your model? Because a lot of times, again, the management is stuck to the model. They don't want to change the model. They think the model works. Again, Borders thought that that model was going to work forever, and it didn't. That model failed. Barnes and Noble is supposedly making a comeback, but we'll see. We'll see how that goes. But again, you have problems. Where do you go? Let's take a look at what the customer says about Joann's stores and what they think about them. And I mean, again, this is sort of a, you know, and I know that people say, well, you're just showing the negatives. You're just showing this, everybody's got negative reviews. That's true. Everybody's got negative reviews, but most good companies out there have a 4 or higher star rating. Everybody gets a couple of negative reviews. There's no way around it, but you don't have dominating negative reviews. When your negative reviews dominate, and you get to the point where you're below a 4 with 17,000 reviews, then you have a problem. And by not focusing on that problem, you're just putting your head in the sand. That's all you're doing. And then you're waiting for the inevitable. And so to me, it's their own fault. This is not the economy. Joann Fabrics, again, failed to change with the times, failed to keep up with the customer preferences, kept building big stores. Maybe you don't need that big of a store. Maybe you need a smaller store. Maybe you need to merchandise differently, but maybe you need to look at what's going on online. You should own online. You've been around since 1947. You should be the dominant player in online online sales for your product line. You should be the dominant player, but you're not, because you're stuck to the model. You're stuck to the store model. So I have no sympathy for you. None whatsoever. So, again, but it bothers me when people say, oh, it's the economy. It's not the economy. Not the economy. It's bad management. Bad management. This body shop was a great company for decades. Founded in 1976. It was a trailblazer in the natural beauty and ethical products. And then it market share eroded. Competitors, Lush, Sephora, Ulta Beauty, all jumped into the space. I mean, look at Sephora. They're in every Kohl's, they're in every JCPenney, they're in every mall. They're all over the place. So, and you fail to react. So in the beginning, you had a really good point of differentiation. You were the first one with ethical products, natural products, and and you were able to go, right? People loved it because you were completely different. Now you're not so different. So you didn't keep up with your difference. You didn't look for more difference. You're hanging on the same selling points that you were hanging on in 1976. The same selling points that you've been hanging on since 1976. Well, I'm sorry, the world passed you by. There's nothing I can say that's going to change that. The world passed you by. And again, what do customers say about it? The customers, this company, because I was in the skincare business, Body Shop used to have loyal customers, raving reviews. Now, not so good. Not so good. Right? And again, when the numbers start to get up there and you're in the 200s, 300s, and your numbers are below a 4, I'm sorry. You're just not paying attention. You are not paying attention to the customer. And people laugh at me when I say it all the time. In our business, I say it to our clients. I've said it in the businesses that we founded over 20 years ago, even before that, when I worked for companies. Who's the customer? What does the customer say? People used to laugh at me because that's what I used to say all the time. And then this is another big one to me. And we hear about this, and there's big talk about it's going to have a resurgence, but I'm sorry, I just don't agree. Red Lobster, I'm sorry, it's a tired business. It was established in '68, became synonymous with seafood-focused casual dining, but this menu is so stagnant. Younger diners aren't going to go to the Red Lobster. Fast casual seafood chains. You've got meal delivery options. Heck, You go to your supermarket today and you can buy ready-made meals to put in your oven that are probably just as good. And but this they just hired a new CEO who came out of a private equity group or an investment group, and he's making big talk about turning it around. I don't know, man. I've been to a Red Lobster a couple of times in the last decade, and they smell funny to me. I've not eaten there. I've walked in and just left because to me they're just awful. And I don't know how you can turn that around. And I think that the customer sees it. I think that the customer is also um, not coming back, right? When your customer um, starts telling you that you're not good, and again, most of these reviews go local store, right? You can go into your own Google and you can Google it and see what they say. But I Googled 10, 15 different cities, and everybody says the same thing. It's just old and tired and dirty, and the food's not good anymore. I don't know how you bring this one back. Maybe you will, maybe they will. I don't know. I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but I can tell you that for me, the name of the book for Amazon, I just remembered it. The name of the book that you want to read is The Everything Store. It was written a bunch of years ago about Amazon, but there were two key points in there. Actually, three key points in there. One was the Borders book deal, which is important because you can see how they thought they were stuck to their model. They gave their business to Amazon. Amazon was a direct competitor. Amazon took it and ran with it, and basically Borders is no longer. Toys R Us, another one who paid millions of dollars to Amazon, paid them to take over their e-commerce business, paid them, and then sued Amazon 4 or 5 years later to get out of the deal that they paid Amazon for, when they saw the devastation that they gave to themselves, right? And where's Toys R Us today? And the other one was it Circuit City? I think it was Circuit City was another one to sell electronics on Amazon, and basically gone today. And all these guys gave their business to Amazon because they didn't want to run e-commerce. They didn't want to run it. They gave it to Amazon. Okay, Amazon was almost done. They were almost done. And these three deals put them over the top. This is what saved them. It's a great book if you get a chance to read it, The Everything Store. I'll put it in the comments. But again, what did we see here? We saw some common themes. We didn't see a lot of economic factors, right? We didn't see that, oh, the economy's bad, customers aren't spending money. No, customers are spending money. They're buying things in other retailers. They're just not buying them in these retailers anymore. Why? Because these retailers aren't keeping up with them. Why do I want to spend money with somebody who doesn't recognize what I'm all about? Today, you have to connect with your customer. You have to understand who they are and what they want. You go to a Wegmans supermarket, they know who I am. They know who the customer is. They know what the customer wants. And it's not just, wealthy customers. No, it's everyday customers because they give great value and they've got great products. They care about the customer. They actually care about the customer. You see it at Publix down in the South. Publix is a great retailer. Right? They've kept up. They've been around for I don't know how many years, maybe 100 at this point, but they are a great retailer who keeps up with changing customers, right? There's a lot of great retailers out there that have e-commerce, strong e-commerce sites. Strong e-commerce sites. Gap has a strong e-commerce site. J. Crew has a strong e-commerce site, and they've changed. They stay in touch with the customers, right? So you know, so I don't think that this is all economically driven, right? I see that poor business management. We've seen it throughout every one of these. And the answer is right in front of them if they just bothered to look. The customer is telling you what's wrong with your business. The customer will always tell you what's wrong with your business. You just have to look and be willing to listen to them. That's it. And why is that important for entrepreneurs? It's important for startups and entrepreneurs because as you grow, you always want to listen to the customer because you're going to have to make decisions. And sometimes they're not going to be popular with the customer. But if you stick to your model, and you're unwilling to change and unwilling to flex on it, and you think that it's always going to be there, you're wrong. It's not. And you're going to get stuck. And again, failing to adapt to consumer trends. I mean, the customer changes. Young people grow up. Grown up people become older. Everybody changes. We were in the shaving business for a number of years. The older guys, they're stuck to their single blade razors, two blade razors, whatever they've been using for 30 years. Guys that are under 45, they're willing to change five blade, anything, any kind of new, right? And that's who your market is. So if you're trying to sell like a new Gillette with, heat and vibrating handles and all these pieces to a guy that's 65 years old, it's gonna be really difficult. Yeah, sure, maybe they'll try it, but they'll always yell at you and tell you that they like their single blade better. Um, and then there are a lot of guys that are younger that get into the whole, I'm shaving with a single blade because it's great. I bought this $500 Merkur razor, and so you have to really understand who your customer is, and you got to follow along. You have to pay attention to them as they change, as things innovate, people innovate. I mean, again, I point out Gillette, but to me, Gillette constantly innovates, whether they're right, wrong, or indifferent, whether you like them, don't like them, it doesn't matter. They're constantly innovating, and they're constantly looking at who the customer is. Now, they got a little wake-up call with Harry's and Dollar Shave Club and us and everybody else that was out there, but still, they reacted. They didn't put their head in the sand and go, no, we're just going to keep doing what we've always done. So I give them a lot of credit for what they've done. So again, a couple of lessons from all this, right? It's the importance of embracing omni-channel strategies. We have a lot of clients that sell to retail or have retail stores, but also sell online. We focus primarily online, but we're not opposed to doing things for stores. But at the same time, you've got to have both, because the customer is going to look for both. And if the customer gets online looking for your product and you're not there, and they find that product or a similar product on Amazon, you lost the sale. You lost the sale because it's going to be more convenient. So you want to be everywhere that the customer is. You want to be everywhere. Even if you don't think that it's a great channel, just be there, because you never know. You need to stay tuned to customer preferences, changing customer trends. You need to balance your growth with financial stability. Too many of these guys take on so much debt, and they think we're just going to take on debt because we're going to build stores, but that's all right. We'll pay down the debt as the stores generate revenue. Yeah, okay. But then when the stores don't generate the revenue you want or the profit that you want, then you're saddled with all this debt. You go into bankruptcy to try and restructure the debt. Then you come out of bankruptcy, and then you've got less stores, and then you start trying to fix things. And then next thing you know, you go into bankruptcy again. Some of these guys have been in bankruptcy 2 and 3 times. I mean, I just don't know what's going to happen. And then in my opinion, as a startup founder or an entrepreneur who's got a business, you always want to stay on top. You join forums, you look around, you get into CEO groups. I don't care how small you are, I don't care how big you are. You get into some of these forums and mind grubs and things to stay on top of hearing what people are doing, but constantly stay in touch with the customer. I don't know if I can stress that anymore. And I know people don't believe me. They go, well, the customer's always going to vent. Yeah, they're going to vent. They're going to vent. Let them vent. Let them vent. I could get on the phone and have a customer yell at me for 5 minutes. Makes no difference to me. It happens all the time. Somebody gets mad about something. They don't think something's working. You listen and you explain to them what the strategy is. And then 9 times out of 10 in our business, they understand it and they move on. But if it's, if you're selling them a physical product, and they're not happy with it, listen to it. They don't like the new packaging. I mean, new Coke, which was an old problem, but again, it's one that comes up all the time. Customers were outraged. The whole thing was dumb. They were trying to make their Coke taste more like Pepsi, which was ridiculous. And so they abandoned it after a year, and they invested so much money into it. So we see it over and over again. We've heard it time and time again over the years. So, but startups, small businesses, you need to find your brand identity. You need to stick with your brand identity, but you need to change with the times. You need to alter your model sometimes. You need to alter your products sometimes. That doesn't mean you move away from your brand identity. It just means that you're staying on top of customer changes, customer trends, and things like that, but you're staying true to your brand, right? And then, I think, again, to me, the biggest thing is when you have a problem in business, the first place you look is the customer. That's where you're going to find the answer to your problems. Then you can figure out your financial plan for getting out of it. Then you can figure out your operational plan for getting out of it. But if you're not taking the customer feedback seriously and you're putting your head in the sand, then you're just not going to survive. You're not going to make it. So anyway, I hope you got something out of this. I enjoyed doing it. We're going to talk next week about how we reward failure, because some of these CEOs that have put these companies in these positions have walked away with huge payouts, and not something that they should be proud of. Because why should they get rewarded for putting a company into bankruptcy? Why should they get rewarded for not doing their job? Because that's what we're doing. We're essentially rewarding them for not doing their job. And you'll see some interesting tactics there. Anyway, I enjoyed this conversation. It was good for me. I did a little bit of research. I always love to have guests on, but in this particular case, I just wanted to do this one myself. So we'll have a couple more of these over time. Next week, we're going to do one on, I may or may not have a guest. I'm not sure yet, but on, compensating or rewarding failure. We even see it in sports. I mean, how many times do you see a coach get paid huge amounts of money to come in? 2 years later, he gets thrown out because they went 0-14 or 0-16, and they're gone. So, but they still leave with a big paycheck. Anyway, so I enjoyed doing this one. I enjoyed researching these. I do read every morning a lot about business, and I do read these stories, and it burns me up when people sit there and go, "Oh, it's the economy, it's the economy, it's the economy." No, it's a bad brand. It's not the economy. It's a bad brand. So anyway, I enjoyed doing it, and we will see you next time.